Greetings and welcome to Olympus. I am Hercules Invictus, and today I'm here with Michael Del Russi, and we will be discussing matters of import to all those who wish to follow the Olympian path. Greetings, Michael. How are you?
I'm good, and it's happy to be with all of you.
Yes, I'm happy to be with you too. And you've been doing a lot of research in our private conversations. You amazed me with how much research you've been doing. Would you care to share some of this research?
Absolutely. I was had a friend recently. I've been looking for you might say, a church family, wanting a better description. But I've been looking for a spiritual group that I could motivate them, they could motivate me,
Hmm.
and we can support each other in terms of our beliefs and our approach to life. So they're a little bit hard to find, but there's one in the Montclair area. They've been there for years. Unity Spiritual Center. Very small church, very welcoming. So I decided, well, that's the place I'm familiar with. That's the place I know. There's also a Science of Mind center that I used to attend to, but that's way up in Morristown, and my ability to travel is a little bit limited right now. So, long story short, I went to Unity, and it was a wonderful experience. A very intimate crowd, individuals who have done their work and are very dedicated in terms of what they do. So we had a wonderful time. But it led me to believe, led me in the direction of, what is New Thought spirituality? Because there's probably a lot of individuals, even in the holistic community, who are not sure what it means. What does it entail? So, as I always like to do, I'd be for those who are interested in really diving deep into the research. I'd like to mention some of the great teachers of New Thought, which have impacted my life so tremendously. It When I first discovered it, it was a real adventure, like nothing I had ever read or digested before in terms of looking at life or the universe as we know it. But I have to give her all the credit for bringing it back to the forefront of the American consciousness. Rhonda Byrne,
Uh-huh.
Ernest Holmes was a. I was fascinated by his book, The Science of Mind, which was more like a textbook than anything else in terms of what New Thought is, thinking into the source, allowing the source to be available to you. But it's just incredible. And Charles Fillmore and Myrtle Fillmore, a married couple who pioneered Unity Spiritual Centers as we know it. Emmett Fox, I'm sure most of our listeners know about the writings of Emmett Fox.
The 7 Day.
Neville Goodard, yes.
Yeah, he was very.
Neville Goodard, uh, Joe Dispenza. I'm not too familiar with his writings, but I've seen him do personal speaking engagements. Joe Dispenza. Probably one of the pioneers was a gentleman named Phineas Quimby.
Yes.
He, he's held up as really the pioneer, if you will, the groundbreaker in New Thought. And then there's William Walker Atkinson, excellent writer. I had one of his books, and unfortunately, it's in my storage unit right now, but I'm looking to get into that. And of course, Mary Baker Eddy, her healing through the mind practices are known worldwide. Napoleon Hill, Bob Proctor, who passed away not so many years ago, was a real groundbreaker and a motivator. No, so these are some, and I know I've left some great pioneers out of that list, but these are some of the names that if anyone really wants to take a deep dive into New Thought, they can do so. But I think it's important to establish what is it, because I bet if you stop two people in the street, they'd be scratching their heads. What is New Thought?
Yeah, there
So,
are plenty of teachers, you thought, addressing very many different spheres of life, everything from the
mm,
spiritual to the physical, and then the physical in terms of romance, in terms of wealth, in terms of all the different spheres of human activity.
absolutely, but the core of it, and once people learn about it, once people begin to understand the basic principles and concepts, uh, they get excited. I have found that most people become very intrigued because, again, it isn't about denominational rules, regulations, certain spirits or gods that you must follow or adhere to be part of the movement. Nothing of the kind. So, what is New Thought spirituality? Let's see if we can define it. New Thought, my perspective, spirituality, first of all, is a 19th century spiritual movement that puts a priority upon divine consciousness, which dwells within everyone, and that right thinking, rather than traditional dogma, can create a better quality in every area of our lives. Now, I read this passage when I first discovered New Thought, and already my interest in the God source, if you will, and what life is really all about, ignited like 10 times. It just this one passage said to myself, what is this all about? Divine consciousness available to everyone. For me, it lit up a whole new world. So, what are the core beliefs? Humanity is inherently divine, and God, or universal intelligence, is an omnipresent, impersonal force. Well, I like that for any number of reasons. Because, first of all, it does align itself from a metaphysical aspect of what it says in Scripture. The rain falls on the just and the unjust. So the field is there. The field is there. Which makes sense because, like in any other invisible energy, our intention and imagination, as well as faith, is the channel in terms of how it manifests in our lives. Atomic particles constantly move and float, thought through the air that makes up the air itself. Atoms are always in motion, vibrating and traveling, traversing space, making the concept of floating in the air a constant dynamic process at the microscopic level. A field of all creation, waiting for consciousness to be applied. That, to me, that speaks for itself. These are fundamental principles. The fact is, even the air itself is full of atomic particles. We can't see it. It's a field. It's a field waiting to be created upon. When we see things this way, the way they truly are, the potential itself is exciting, and at first almost hard to grasp, because in many ways it's right there for us. There isn't any hard or difficult dogma or rule or regulation to accept some of these basic facts. I say facts because, as far as we know, at least until this point, science has validated all of this. So this makes it even more exciting. This is the substance of God. Our minds and quality are the consciousness of God. This is basically, as far as I know, a quote of mine. The substance of God, the creator, universal intelligence, is the atomic structure, which permeates and makes everything around us, is the core essence of everything around us. But the consciousness of God, as far as we know, is in us. We are the consciousness of God, or the creator. This is the quality, or the Olympian path, if you will, to infinite mind. And I truly believe, especially in Greek mythology and the Greek legends, this is where a divine mind was trying to express itself through the many Greeks and the heroes and the tales of adventure and woe and joy that came with the history of Greek mythology. So I think that in that way, that was, again, our consciousness melding with divine, the field of divinity, trying to express itself in human nature in so many ways. That was done, of course, through the creation of the gods themselves. And we have been expressing that through, their many activities and interpersonal relationship with us, which is, again, pretty fascinating when you get right down to it. So we move on to the teachings of Neville Goddard, which I really enjoy tremendously, his interpretation. And he happened to believe in realization precedes manifestation. A spiritual realization of health is the result of whatever we are holding in consciousness. Divine law emanating from the next level of consciousness. The word Christ originated from the Greek Christos, meaning anointed or covered in oil.
That's that's a tricky one. Christ is a word that is spelled three different ways, and each way has a different meaning. So Christ with a yota or an I, it means an anointed one. Christ with an epsilon yota or an ei making the I sound, that is oracle, like a fortune teller, like going to the oracle hellfire someplace. And then Christ with an eta, that makes the same sound, but it's a different letter. That means like a good citizen, like somebody who belongs to a social club, like the Masons or the Rotarians or the Elks. And there are cemeteries in Greece from that time where just about everybody of importance is a Christ.
Now, how, from a Greek perspective, the civilization of Greece, when did the term Christ or Christos come into being from the standpoint of the Greek culture? Was it? Was there a specific?
For a while, because Paul used it when he came and addressed the Athenians at the Rock of Ares. So it's already in usage when he used it to describe his divine spirit that he was working for or trying to introduce to the people. But I don't know exactly how long, but it was there for a while.
Right. Now, here's what I find interesting, and you could probably shed some light here. How did that relate to the Greek belief, if you will, of the land of the gods and all of the gods that they were familiar with? Was there a synoptic connection somehow, like a parallel, or was one more or less somehow one belief completely alienated from another? Was there a way of a meshing, if you will, between the myths as we know it and the Christian movement? Is there a way we could define that connection, if there was one?
Well, what happened ultimately and eventually is that Christianity triumphed in ancient Greece and in Rome. But in the meanwhile, very many pagan institutions and deities were incorporated into the new religion. So Hercules, for instance, was syncretized with Saint Luke, and there was a graffiti
Mm-hmm.
statue of Hercules says, "Winkle, you think you have it bad? They've made me into a doctor." Uh, so that's how he felt. And there's, of course, Saint Ulysses or Odysseus, as it is in Greek, and they kept Hades. So the realm of Hades, not the god Hades. So the god Hades left, but the realm of Hades remained. And even in Catholicism, people can go to the realm of Hades. And Jesus went there for 3 days and freed certain souls from the realm of Hades. They also Charon, who's Charos in the new Greek way of looking at things. He's still, at the time of my childhood, people were dying,
Mm-hmm.
waiting for Charos to escort them to the river to cross it to go to judgment. So what happened basically, according to how they understand it, is that the management of heaven and the underworld changed.
Mm-hmm.
All the spirits, like the angels, the fabulous beasts, the demi-humans, and so forth, they stayed the same, except they were under new management, and the heroes were replaced by saints. So what heroes would do with you before you pray to heroes, and the heroes would come help you. Now you pray to saints, and the saints will come help you.
So there was, and I learned this from the time I was a schoolboy, but to be more definitive in it, on the topic, it was definitely I want to say an interconnection between the great myths of Greece and the concepts of Christianity. There was an influence there.
Well, Christianity was recorded in the books were written in Greek, so there was a
Right.
cultural carryover. It
Mhm.
became they coexisted until Christianity became hostile and
I see.
faith, and a lot of Christian churches were built on old temples, so they co-opted the temples. And again, when I was growing up in my youth, um, there were holidays that were observed that were clearly pagan. People jumping over bonfires and people dressing up like satyrs and beating people up who were wandering in the night. Those were clearly
Mhm.
ancient pagan leftovers, and they were customs that the peasants did, but nobody remembered what originally the theology was. And the church didn't condemn them because they were just customs that people observed and they made the people happy.
So there's and this is what I have always heard throughout my youth, and I found it, I wouldn't say confusing, but interesting down the way how much the Greek gods and their influence had over Christianity itself. I do find it interesting that even today's perspective, it's not talked about too much.
No,
Now, perhaps I'm being expressing an over expression of curiosity there, but I find that very interesting. How could you ignore such a influential foundation, if you will, in terms of your doctrinal beliefs, which was such a major influence? I mean, when you look at the Greek gods themselves, Zeus, Hera, Poseidon, Dionysus, Apollo, you can go down the line, Hermes, Athena, all of them, Ares, of course, all of them had all of those wonderful images, had a definite meaning and purpose behind their existence, and those purposes parallel, and this is what gets me excited, frankly, parallel human nature as we know it. So in so many ways, looking at the gods, it's a blatant expression of who we are as human beings. Is there not an abundance of knowledge there in studying these wonderful characters and gods as they knew them, in terms of learning about ourselves? Because in studying the Greek gods, I think one of the purposes certainly was learning about ourselves and who we are, and the almost interchangeable environment between the two. How do you feel about that?
The transpersonal psychology, or the Neo-Jungians, they published a lot of work on that. Somebody wrote 2 books, The Gods in Every Man and then The Goddesses in Every Woman. But there were lots of books like that. I have a whole library of them somewhere in a box.
Really?
And I've read them over the years that show how our psyches are kind of wired with the stories of the myths, and we're living the myths, the stories of the heroes and the gods and the folklore through our lives. We're kind of duplicating the stories in infinite combination. And if you're conscious, you get a chance to change the way the story goes. If you're unconscious, you're doomed to live out the story.
Mm-hmm. That's it. I find that extremely exciting, and I've heard of that. I've heard of that chamber of consciousness before, but I've never read any authors on the subject, if you will. But when you start putting all of this together, it serves to me, anyway, it just magnifies the existence of those wonderful, wonderful images in our lives. Does that excite you when you focus on it, when you magnify it?
Oh, yes.
Does it?
Living the stories, even unconsciously, is still living the stories. And my entire life, if you could summarize it in 2 words, would be living mythology. Whether I'm bringing mythology to life through what I do, or whether I'm living out the myths, it's living mythology.
Mm-hmm.
So, as far as I'm concerned, those are my spiritual adventures. And I contributed to a book on theurgy, which I wrote my podcast on theurgy. And I shared, before I studied any of this stuff and how the ancients did it, I figured out my own way to do it, and I did it. And I labeled my chapter, I was a teenage theurgist. And theurgy is the science of connecting with the divine, which in my case would be the Olympian divine, and then acting as a conduit for the energies, the spiritual energies or the divine energies to enter into our life here. And to enter the gods and the heroes and the other denizens of the Olympian pantheon and realms here. And so, again, I think for everybody, there's a unique path, and then there's general categories of paths, and not everyone is the same, and I believe not everyone's path is the same. But I'm glad that this one exists, and I'm glad that you and the many other people I've met are on that path. And even though we're doing things differently, we still share insights with each other and share our excitement with each other. And I'm really happy about that.
Well, it gets me excited because being a New Thought, I consider myself a New Thought metaphysician. I'm not objectionable to the term New Thought Christian, in that I believe Yeshua, Jesus, if you will, played and still does play a part in all of this, because I believe, and this is where things got twisted in my personal opinion, Jesus did not come here to save us from sin.
Jesus came here to teach us there's another level of existence, a level of divinity, if you will, that can work for us in the here and now. While there's a certain aspect of this journey that includes pain, suffering, everything that goes with, but also joy and happiness, satisfaction. And I think Jesus came here to serve as a prime example, an extension of universal consciousness, whichever he may truly be. Of course, I think there's plenty of evidence to show at this point he was exactly what the Christian belief says he was. I'm totally convinced of that. His history has been delved into so many times in so many ways, examined in from so many areas of scientific wisdom. We pretty much know, as they say in the common terminology, he was the real deal. And what I find interesting, I know Neville Goddard, and I like what he has done, because he's taken Scripture itself, Old and New Testament, and he has basically, apparently, translated it from a metaphysical and metaphorical perspective to show who we are, why reading Scripture in the right way is so vitally important, and how, as metaphysicians, there's so much knowledge to be gained there, not only through the words of Christ, but through the words of others who lived not only during his time, but decades later. As we know, Paul lived how many years? I think, and I'm not exactly accurate on this, I don't believe, but maybe 200, 400 years after Christ. And yet the dedication, the determination to share that metaphysical wisdom, which I believe what Jesus tried to share with us, to the world, was inexhaustible. His desire to do that was inexhaustible. And it's as been said many times, either Paul was one of two things. In fact, the same thing has been said about the Christ, if you will. Either they were both completely insane, or they were absolutely guided by a universal force, the likes of which perhaps we're still trying to understand. So
the Gnostic writings, there's a lot of writings that support what you're saying. There's the Gnostic writings, there's the Hermetic writings, and in Gnosticism, you're here not to earn your place in a particular heaven, but to remember who you are, which is someone divine. You're a divine spark that was there from the beginning, and you're either stuck here or you came here of your own volition. But the whole purpose of the Christian mysticism in the early days, and a lot of pagan mysticism, is to help you remember that you are.
Now, another aspect of that is, of course, the going directly to the history of some of the gods themselves and attaining further knowledge of ourselves. And, I think as the eons of time have gone by, I think many of us have the ability to do that. We've developed the ability to do that. That Christianity, as an example, using that as an example, and the great Greek myths are not really separate, but in many ways entwined to take our knowledge to new, and may I say at times, and it can be, because everything depends on our focus. Everything depends on our focus from minute to minute, day to day. And when we put our focus on some of these similarities and some of the energy that it all creates, life can be pretty exciting. Our problem is, of course, we're dealing we're dealing with the world of mass and form and everyday challenges, and we sometimes can forget to do that. But I often ask myself, can you imagine? And you teach many classes, and you have run the gamut, and I know that if we took that energy with us, step by step, day by day, I believe there's a mythical yet very real euphoria that can overwhelm us and literally change our lives moment to moment. And I know myself that what is your feeling on that?
Yeah, I believe that we can tap into those states of mind that are associated with divine antiquity and to the present day. I found some videos for you on the cosmic mind. In Greece, that's called nous, which means mind, N-O-U-S. And I put a few in my group Olympian Manifestation on Facebook. And also Olympian, meaning the Olympics Olympian, mental training techniques, which are very effective because they're practical. These sports people and athletes use them to improve their game or their sport. So I put those in the group too to start building up information for people who are curious about cosmic mind in Olympianism and mental training.
I would love to see some of that.
Yeah, it's in Olympian Manifestation. I'll invite you. I'll send you the link.
That would be wonderful. I'm in the process of making some connections in terms of helping me with some paperwork and hopefully some new writings of my own that I can get out there. Yeah, I'm excited about it because every time we share this infinite knowledge, if you will, we learn something new. At least I do. And from what you share in your long history in metaphysics and mythology and the occult or the hidden sciences, there's just a world of exciting discovery to be made here. So it certainly excites me. Before we go discussing new thought like we have, which again, the excitement never leaves me, because how can a spiritual concept be so present right before our eyes? And you might say, well, Michael, what exactly do you mean by that? Well, we have learned that there appears to be a connection between the atomic source as we know it, our consciousness, and our daily lives. Well, what do you mean by that? Well, because everything is made of atoms. We know everything is made of atoms. Atoms that are constantly in motion, even in the air itself. I recently read an article, you may have heard her by her last name was McTaggart. And I forget her first name, but she wrote all about the 0 point field, which I know you must be familiar with, and how at the very
I've heard about it
base of that.
Learning more about it now.
Yeah, she wrote a book about the 0 point field, which is when you get right to the end of that field of creation, atoms, billions and billions of them, are constantly around us, constantly circulating, not only in the tables and chairs and cars and the material items that we're familiar with that we can see with the naked eye, but the air itself. And then to take it a step further, when you move into the quantum level of trying to understand these atoms, what have we discovered up to this point, at least? Well, through my personal understanding, at least, it's that our observation of these atoms, of these atomic particles, protons, neutrons, and electrons, their activity can be affected by the observation of the observer. by what the observer is thinking and feeling at the time he's looking at them. I mean, the bottom line here is this: even if you're someone who is not ready to accept this, you have to acknowledge that science has already proven this much, that they seem to react according to the observer. Well, that's really incredible. What that means is that it will be as we believe, as Jesus said so many things. I think one of the greatest teachers of New Thought was the Christ himself, because it always amazes me, everything he said about our intention, our imagination, our faith, our beliefs at the moment of prayer, if you will, at the moment of desire. You know, when you really step back, you look at it, and all of the teachers, the entire list that I've just read from the 19th century practitioners of this process, Jesus the Christ was probably still one of the greatest teachers. There certainly were others, even in Buddhism. There were minor. I don't think it was as extensive as Jesus made it, if you will. But even in Buddhism, there was talks about the mind proceeding activity, proceeding creation. The only thing with Buddhism to me focused more on suffering. So, and through suffering cultivates, right intention, ethical conduct, ultimate wisdom. All comes through whatever suffering we may have to endure on this planet. Happiness in Buddhism seems to arise from ethical conduct, wisdom, and detachment. Detachment, of course, is one of the key ingredients to finding peace, finding happiness, releasing desire. That's a little bit different in many ways of what we in New Thought or in traditional spiritual practice in general, it's a little bit different of what's taught in that respect. Because I don't personally believe in total detachment to find peace. Personally, I believe accomplishment, wisdom, seeking, I think, and being successful at it. I think that's where personal peace truly lies. How do you feel about that?
I feel the same. In mythology and even in sword and sandal films, I can think of two offhand. Steve Reeves, the first iconic cinematic Hercules, and The Rock, who's one of the last people to play the role. They both demonstrated in the tales, as Hercules does in his myths, that this life is important. So Hercules and Steve Reeves, as Steve Reeves as Hercules more accurately says, he wants to have a wife, a family, raise children. So that's always been a guiding thing in my life too. I love metaphysics and visiting internal and external spiritual worlds and so on, and experiencing states of mind. But this world is where I am. This is where the people I love currently are. So this is where I want to be.
Well, I think that's where our life force comes from. So while I respect the eightfold path and all of that that comes along with Hinduism, I think there's a lot to be gained from that. Just like the Tao Te Ching, we're not really sure who wrote it. We claim that Lao wrote it, but I've read since then that may be a fable. We really don't know who wrote the Tao Te Ching. But the Tao Te Ching simply speaks about being as nature, watching the rivers flow, being, they're becoming one with the peaceful aspect of that. Now, I think all of that is great. but I think us warriors, we who have been so enamored with the Greek heroes of those days, have done so much to influence all of civilization. We would be denying ourselves and I've known people personally who have escaped to do Buddhism. I have had personal relationships with individuals who discovered yoga and what have you, which I have never been a practitioner of. I know some basics, the different types of yoga. That would never be for me. I need to hit a heavy bag. I need to hold a spear in my hand. I need to do what Hercules did. I need to play that role. So
Right.
that's what life is really all about. You understand what I'm trying to say?
Oh yeah, I understand that. When I work out, the room where I work out, which is half of my bedroom, is my office for the show and also my gym. There are pictures,
Mhm.
statues, and plastic action figures of Hercules all over the place, as well as select Olympians. But I'm looking at The Rock, I'm looking at Steve Reeves, I'm looking at Lou Ferrigno, I'm looking at Reg Park, I'm looking at some ancient depictions. Hercules being crowned by Urania, the muse of astrology and astronomy. I have some other cultural manifestations of Hercules, like the jaguar god of South America, Thor,
Mhm.
Samson. so, so I surround myself
You
with
know, I
this too, and with me too, it's working out. Hercules was the god of gyms, among other things.
yeah.
That's my temple. I have a home temple now, but it's my temple.
Well, I must tell you that I get excited just listening to you describe your environment right now. Uh, for me, it's a little. I really haven't made the effort uh, yet, but I hope to create an internal environment, if you will, which depicts more readily the ancient Greek history and mythology of that time. I think of course, your inner environment, the environment you create for yourself, is so vitally important
Yeah,
because it brings out your true spirit is expressed through your internal, external designs, if you will. So I think that's vitally important, and that's great that you have your environment, set up in that way.
yeah. It's the only way I could be at peace. if if I have my way.
Right.
And I have my toys, also my low back track. I have these hoops. I have Hercules twisters, these metal rods with heavy springs in them. I have all sorts of stuff, and I record them in a group on Facebook that also
Hmm.
lists lists peplum stars and comic book characters and so on that inspire me. So I put the inspirational pictures in there, and sometimes I'll focus on different stories. Like right now, I'm focusing on the golden apples of Hesperides. So everything in there is related to that in some way.
Well, that's so exciting, and I think it has to be paramount for those of us who have heard the calling of, okay, what is this life truly all about? The gods have touched the earth. Uh, Christos, the Lord Jesus, I believe, also tried to show us. Other great ancient teachers have also tried to show us the way. But candidly, and this is, of course, not to demean other spiritual practices, I think for many, Buddhism, yoga, the study of Krishna and some of the other Hindu gods, if you will, for them, they certainly have their place. And frankly, there's mysteries in Hinduism. As you probably know, some have felt that some of the writings depict an alien presence. And that may certainly be the case, but I could not live according to some of those precepts or practices. Meditation in that respect is all well and good. An expression in terms of nature and our connection is all well and good, but I need the adventures of Hercules. I need the adventures of those wonderful gods who depicted so beautifully who we are. They depicted and gave us an example of who we are, our faults, our attributes, our spirit of adventure. This is what they gave to us. How can you live without that? How, once you discover it, once you focus on it, once you know that this is part of who we are, and remind yourself of that every single day. We are part of the gods who touch the earth. How could your division of our lives changes so dramatically? Do you understand the point I'm trying to make on this level?
I believe so. Keep talking. I get what you're saying so far. I want to see where you take it.
Well, and I truly believe that. And I believe adopting that consciousness. Here's our challenge. It's like, and we can go back to New Thought, the fundamentals, the principles of New Thought. When we awake in the morning, and remind ourselves, just think one sentence. I am an expression of divine consciousness. Can you imagine affirming that every morning when we get out of bed? And I don't do it. I'll be the first one to admit, I know it would change my entire day. I am an expression of divine consciousness. Let's use that as a meditation. Let's use, all of us listening tonight, let's use that as an affirmation, because it's a truth. Within me is an expression of divine consciousness. We're connected to something bigger. From that, the field of all of the many gods who've tried to show us the way spreads out and stands before us. They expand and they stand before us. I'm telling you, the universe within is so exciting, because when we acknowledge these sources, life can be so much more of an adventure that sometimes it normally is.
That's very true. I believe that, and I do tell myself things like that, different words, but same sentiment every day. I meditate at least twice a day. Just like I work out.
That's very good.
Sometimes up to 4 and 5 times, like 20-minute intervals throughout the day. And I do tell myself during my meditation, I calm my body, I calm my mind, and then I remind myself of my spiritual truths. And I
admire that. I admire that you're doing that. I really do admire that you're doing that.
It's just I cultivated it a long time ago, and I just do it automatically now. So there's no virtue.
Well, it's enhancing the hero within you, and as we get older, we need that hero within us now more than ever. And it's there. That conquering hero is right there. He's right there for you, and you're doing the right thing. You're opening up the channels, and that's why there is a definite connection between what the Christ taught, because he said, it will be as you say, it will be as you think. It will manifest as your mind tells you it will. Jesus said all of these things. If you wrote down or you studied just what Jesus said, what did he say about faith and manifestation? There is so much there. And that's why I think that Neville Goddard used the Bible as a metaphysical book. And so many have bypassed that reality, because it is. It is, in so many ways, it's a metaphysical book teaching us not about a third heaven. There's no third heaven. I had someone say to me over the weekend, well, I only believe what the Bible says. But are you completely understanding what the Bible says, or are you just following what others have done as far as twisting and interpreting the words to suit them to create a restricted denominational environment, if you will, instead of following the way, which was the Christ ministry, was simply the way. The mystery schools, they too were the way in a different way because they followed the Nagamani, the what was taught in the Gnostic literature, but it's pretty much the same thing. You know, rules and regulations controlling the population were not the main focus through some of these teachings.
Also, the Archeons and the Gnosticism is very interesting. Christ is he's a God who redeems and who rescues in Gnosticism. And he's the, I guess, Syzygus, who would be in Greek, the consort, the husband, the mate, the complement of Sophia, which is divine wisdom.
I see.
So we are all divine souls from the
yes,
Dharma, which is the undifferentiated oneness of things. And because of Sophia, some of us come here to extend the knowledge of the one that seeks to know its many manifestations, and we're those manifestations. So their purpose is to remind us of who we are so that we can, again, bring the lessons back to heaven, that heaven needs to learn, and rejoin our other divine selves in bliss.
You know, I have to say that you said that beautifully, because that encompasses everything we've been trying to express tonight. And it's painful to look at the world as it is right now. I'm trying desperately not to do it. I've always been a political animal, so for me, it takes a little bit of energy to divorce myself from listening and exposing myself to what's happening right now in the world around us. But if we all encompass the one reality you just described, which is new thought spirituality, unity consciousness, the field is there, but the rain falls on the just and the unjust. And it's up to us to be, yes, co-creators of our lives, co-creators of our reality. And we can make it so much better if we woke up with the knowledge that there is a divine, universal intelligence that we are expressions of. It was true of the Christ, it was true of many other of the major sages, and it's true of us.
Indeed. And those are powerful words to draw our conversation to a close. Thank you for uttering them. And as always, I had a great and stimulating conversation with you. I learned very many things. You've given me much things to meditate upon. And I'm looking forward to our next conversation, both on and off the air. Michael, you're awesome. How can people get in contact with you?
Well, they can get in contact with me by writing to me. We do a light energy prayer session for everyone who writes, and we take it very seriously at 135 Hazel Street, apartment 7E, Clifton, New Jersey, 07011. And this is more important. I'm going to say this very briefly. There is brand new science that stimulating or restoring the mitochondrial function is a promising therapeutic strategy for treating Parkinson's disease, multiple sclerosis, and other neurodegenerative diseases. These are some of the brand new studies I wanted to share tonight. I don't have the time now, but hopefully we're going to carry this and do a deep dive in our next session. But to repeat, restoring your mitochondrial has powerful healing effects against neurodegenerative diseases, Parkinson's being one of them, multiple sclerosis being another one. So write to me at that address with your concern. I will write you back with prayer and with affirmation.
Thank you very much. I have Parkinson's, as you know, and that's one of my challenges. So I'm looking forward to all that you've gathered and are willing to share, and I thank you for sharing it.
Thank you for giving us the opportunity to express our research to others. What you are doing, what you do every day is such a blessing. I know it's been such a blessing to me and so many others as well.
And what you do is a blessing to me and to others as well. So I guess we'll continue doing what we're doing. Thank you, Michael, and God bless.
Thank you, Hercules. Thank you so much.